Hey, thanks for listening. So I've been thinking about happiness. So I asked myself, am I happy? I asked my friends, are you happy? And if not, how do we become happy? Or do we even know what happiness is? Well, I've invited the ambassador of happiness, Maura Sweeney, who's going to tell us how to live happiness inside and out. So that's what we'll yak about today. What's up, everybody? David Yak here for Yak About Today, hoping you are better, healthier, and more informed than any generation that came before. So if the years 46 to 64 mean something to you, then this is the place you want to be. Now put your headphones on, go for a run, and listen to what we yak about today. And we are back. I'm David Yak here. You're listening to Yak About Today. And I've got a special treat, as I promised you up front. I've got the ambassador of happiness, Maura Sweeney. Maura, thank you for coming on.
David, thanks a lot for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be with you.
Well, I want to start off with something that's an easy question for you. And, you know, your life really is based on teaching people what happiness is and how to find it inside out. But I'm curious what the definition of happiness is.
What a great way to start. You know, people usually think happiness. You're celebrating a birthday, you just bought a new car, you're on a date, you got the right person. Happiness is a state of mind, and it's something you literally choose to live in every day as things come, things go, because nobody's going to control your mind if you don't. And that's my best definition in terms of what happiness is. We choose to live in a place where we see what's good rather than what's bad. What we have versus what we don't.
So it's a state of mind. And of course, I mean, I don't think we can stay in one state all the time. So it's sort of, I mean, there are things that happen in life that, you know, that are difficult, you know, and you can't be happy about. But I'm gathering that there are techniques or a way of thinking that when you go through these difficulties or challenging times, there's a way of, you know, a way of embracing the inner happiness and bringing it to the forefront.
Totally. Absolutely. And agreed. Like nobody walks around, you know, tiptoeing through tulips all day. There are things that happen, but everything I write about, everything I speak about is always about how do we reframe our thought life so that regardless of what's going on around us, we can see ourselves in the world through different set of eyes. So here's one technique I learned as a child, because I used to be known as Waterworks. My grandmother would always tell me I cried the drop of a hat. I literally chose to grow up happy. So here's what it is. No matter what happens, you have to say to yourself, okay, I'm not feeling good right now. Maybe somebody stabbed me in the back. Maybe I lost my job. Maybe bad health issue. Whatever. Am I a victim? Am I seeing myself internally as a victim? Or am I seeing myself and the world around me as beneficiaries? And if we could start before anything, regardless of what we're looking at, answer the question to say, I'm choosing to be a beneficiary, that one choice writes our way of thinking. It changes the energy inside of us, and it also opens us up to seeing things in new ways. And actually, over the course of time, when we keep thinking this way, to find good things, because that's what beneficiary is. It comes from the word bene, good, not only for ourselves to grow in new opportunities, new learning experiences, but even the way we end up finding ourselves in new places in life. So am I victim or beneficiary, first and foremost? Next question.
Actually, it's a takeoff on that question.
Okay.
So if you're in that state of mind, I'm imagining one of the benefits, which I'm sort of the word I'm using because you did, is it must be infectious. Is it something that other people catch? Your happiness is spread. You know how we can influence people by our demeanor and our moods? And I imagine that happiness is the same way. You have found this inner way of bringing out this happiness. You go to a setting and there are people around and you're talking to them. Does it exude from you, and is it infectious? I guess that's what I'm asking.
I would say both. If people were to ever go to my website and see the old me at like 15, you think, oh, wow, this girl does not look happy. She looks old and decrepit at 15. But that thing about influence, you're absolutely right. Number one, we choose to be the beneficiary. And a lot of times, over the course of decades, I would have to go by myself. And I'd say, all right, I know what I feel like. I'm going to change the way I feel. I'm going to change the way I think. And then I'd bring that thought process out with me. I did it in corporate management. I've done it throughout my life. So two things happened. Number one, my energy has changed completely over the decades, where people actually feel my presence in the room, not as somebody who's like carrying a lot of excess baggage on me, but somebody who does exude something positive, good thoughts, good vibes. But in addition to that, this is funny, I travel the world. I could be in Manhattan or I could be, in foreign countries, foreign cities. People will literally look to me when I'm crossing the street and they know they're waiting for me to smile at them. So it's really interesting. People literally today, they feel energy, they respond to energy. And as far as there are some people, they're going through a hard time. Maybe they don't want to be around happier people or higher energy people. Doesn't matter, but you can be the influence in your world, and then you could end up attracting similar influences as a result.
Yeah, I totally believe that. So I want to phrase the next question right, because it could go really wrong. So this show, or this podcast or radio show, depending on where you're listening to it, is really focused on what a lot of people call the baby boomers. I never use the word senior. We always call them, here in the studio, we call them the wiser and more mature. We call us the wiser and more mature. Here's what I have found. When I live in communities that are basically a more mature communities. So we get to interact with one another. We have dinners with one another. This is supposed to be a time of life where people have put together their assets, have raised their children, have, moved down to this wonderful weather to play golf or to go swimming or make pottery, whatever it is. I don't always sense the happiness that should actually go with this time of life. And I think the question I'm asking, is it as we get older, more difficult to find that happiness? Or am I just totally reading it wrong? And the fact is, as we get older, we understand more and we're wiser and we are happier just because of all those years of wisdom. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It's an enormous question. We could go talking for 2 hours, but you know what? Everything you just said is very true, very accurate. It goes into my mantra, and it's mantra. I started learning how to be this. If I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be happy on the inside of me first, and then I'll respond to the outside world. I think what you're describing, there are some people that followed what the world told them to do, to be, to buy, right? To value. And then maybe they get to a certain age and it's like, I don't know if I really like all this stuff that I acquired. Maybe it's not me. Maybe it doesn't feel right for me. When I was small, I saw so much death as a little child. And so as a result, I saw the end of life first. And what I concluded is people at the end of their life, the happiest people were the ones that were most like themselves. They liked themselves. They were authentic. They were true to themselves. They didn't try pleasing everybody else on the outside world. So regardless of where people are, even if they're not happy, sometimes those are the best opportunities to rethink, to say, have I been buying stuff that other people told me to like and to do and to be? Or can I just go internally and say, hey, what's important to me? What's my values system? What kind of where do I want to live? What do I want to do? Where do I want to play? And then how can I restructure my life, get rid of certain things, maybe sometimes some excess, and then live true to myself? And I think when people get to a certain point, they really want to live a more harmonious life. And that's where you see a lot of disconnects, when people's outside life and everything they tried to do and their inside life don't always match up.
All right, so I've got a question I think is the natural follow-up to it. So what I'm going to do is try to ask the question, then we're going to go to the break, and then you can answer when we come back. All right?
Okay.
All right, so the follow-up, I think, question is, you say that we must continue to live, we must continue to grow regardless of age. I think the question I'm asking are those the ingredients that are necessary, to maintain a certain level of happiness? As we grow older, we never should stop probably until, somebody takes us and puts us 6 feet under or something. So think about that. And I'm going to break here and go to our great sponsor. So I have Maura Sweeney. She's the ambassador of happiness. You're listening to Yak About Today, and I'm David Yakir, and I'll see you on the other side. I want to take a moment to talk to you about New Vision Eye Center. For the last couple of years, they've been a sponsor of this show, and I couldn't be prouder. I've met so many people that have walked up to me and thanked me for recommending them. I hear all sorts of stories about how they've worked miracles. And as you know, I've been a patient of New Vision Eye Center for years. So when I say go see Dr. Minotti, Reinauer, Tate, and O'Brien, it's because I wouldn't trust my eyes to anyone else. And we're back. I'm David Yakir. You're listening to Yak About Today, and I've got the ambassador of happiness, Maura Sweeney, whose mantra, living happy inside out. So, Maura, when we left off before the sponsor and advertising break, I asked a question about, a lot of people, and I think I can phrase it slightly different than I did before the break. So many people, we can call it retirement, or when they come to that place in life where they stop the normal work, the normal raising of kids and all that, and they settle down. Many of them think that they stay who they are. They don't continue to grow. They don't continue to learn. And I think what I asked earlier is, you say that life must be lived and you must continually grow in order to maintain that happiness?
How about in liveliness? Literally the sense of life. Yes. Good question. Think about this. When people get older, don't they get arthritic? They get stiff, right? Do you know, as I was contemplating this interview, every generation believes they're it. They're the be-all and end-all. And then what happens is that the next generation comes up and they think, well, we had it better. We're smarter. What's wrong with that next generation? What happens is that we end up not only maybe physically arthritic as we get older, but I want people to think about this. What happens when you become socially arthritic? What happens when you become psychologically and spiritually arthritic, meaning you are stuck, you are stiff, you are in the same old paradigm? Of course you're not going to have any life because you're trying to live inside a box that doesn't work anymore. Maybe you passed that chapter. Life has changed, so what are you going to do to evolve with it? And what I think has always been a secret, if you hear my energy right now, I'm 60, for anybody's listening, 60. That picture that I referenced when I was 15, I carried the energy of a 72-year-old arthritic woman because I was so bound by old thoughts. I have used every opportunity in life to say, what's new? What can I grow in? What can I do? How about this one? What do I have time for now that I couldn't do before? And what were some things that I was thinking about growing up or at other times in life when I didn't have the wherewithal, the time, the resources to do? And how can I make that work for me today, even if it doesn't look like what it would have been back in the day? That's what keeps us young and growing and emotionally, psychologically, socially, every other way, non-arthritic, and if anything, more flowing and more lively.
All right. So here we go. This is the part of the show where we turn it on you and we use you as the example. All right. So.
All right.
So at a certain age, you decided, I see that you've decided to learn how to dance. You started writing books, right? How?
Yep.
What happened?
What I do today is this ambassador of happiness. I had it in my mind as a preschooler. Wanted to travel the world, make new friends, talk about leadership, and publish good ideas. I didn't start doing what I'm doing until I was in my 50s. Now think about that. And I have traveled 60 countries. I've spoken in maybe 10 countries. I created all those things in my 50s. I don't even think I answered your question. Oh, dancing. Okay, this is very good for anybody who's listening. Listen to this. I could remember being 2.5 years old, Saturday morning, my mother's ironing, and I'm watching TV with her, and I said to her, what is that? And it was American Bandstand, and the kids were dancing. And I thought, whatever that is, I want to do it. Guess what? I had one dance class. My mother took me to it. I made faces. I left. She never talked about it again. I never had a chance to learn how to dance until I was almost 50 years old. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm so old. My daughter said, Mom, you always wanted to dance. Go learn. And it was at a local college. I failed the class twice. People used to laugh at me, not with me. And guess what? 3 years later, after all the classes I took, people look at me now and they're like, hey, Maura, you're such a natural dancer. Going through, let's say, something on the back burner of my life that I always knew would make me feel free and happy, even though I had to kill my ego in the process, made me feel so much better in the long run. So spin that around to everybody who's listening today. Maybe it was something totally different from dance, but you could find a way to make something at some level happen and manifest if you just keep at it, and you'll grow younger in the process.
You threw my questions out of order here.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, it's good. It's good. So what are the changes we've talked about by the way, on the dancing front, what kind of dancing?
Everything, except I don't really like ballet. I did Afro-Caribbean, I did jazz. Oh my gosh, I did so many kinds of dance. Ballroom dancing. I'm not excellent, but I love to dance, and I feel so free physically. Where growing up, all I was supposed to be this lawyer, very smart. So I was like a bookie person, bookworm on two stiff legs. So I'm telling you, it's amazing the things you could do when you step out of your comfort zone.
It's interesting. When you were talking, the reason the dancing jumped out at me is because in the back of my mind, and I haven't told anybody, and now I've told 100,000 people, I wanted to learn hip hop.
I did that too.
That to me is something, because it wasn't around from when I was young, so there was nothing natural or I didn't have any understanding of it. But when I see it in relationship to a certain energy, right? Maybe something so youthful that it's something that inspires me. So now that you talked about taking up dancing later, now I should give good consideration to taking up hip hop someplace. I'm not sure exactly where they would teach it.
And it is. You should. You'll find a place, or you'll find something like it as you keep your eyeballs and your senses open.
So, okay. So here's something that I find particularly interesting, and it has to do with age. I find that, for me anyway, and our age differences, I guess I'm a few years older, I found the 60s to be the pinnacle of what made me, culturally, how I think, how I was going to direct my life. And for me, it always stayed with me, right? So you spend a lot of time observing culture, right? I think the two things I'm going to ask is, what happened to the 60s? Right? And the way we thought about things, right? And how has it changed?
Oh my gosh, you asked me such a big question with no time left. I love the 60s. I love the music. Do you realize the music was so harmonic? It was so unified. It was poetic. Everybody could sing along, and you could be right back in the 60s. A lot of it was really feel-good stuff. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I'll tell you another thing. There was romance and dating and great. You know what? There was great energy between the sexes that I think we've lost. There's good stuff and bad stuff. I love where I am right now, but I'll tell you, I always say this, wherever you are, bring the good stuff from your past up to the front and get rid of the rest, and then use whatever's great for today. But I love the 60s, and if you give me any song from then, I probably could tell you who sang it and could give you some of the lyrics.
Yeah, I always sort of pride myself on that too. We're going to have to wrap it up here. But it's such a great conversation. Promise me you'll come back. And also tell everybody, tell the entire audience how they can get in touch with you, how you can inspire them. Where should they go to find out more information?
Easiest place is to go to my website. It's my name, Maura, M as in Mary, A-U-R-A, followed by the number 4, the letter U, mauraforyou.com, because I'm always for you. And if they're listeners and they're podcasters, I am on several outlets as a podcaster. It's called Maura Sweeney, imagine that, Living Happy Inside Out. But I have books, I speak, so find me at mauraforyou.com, and I'd love to hear from you.
Couldn't thank you enough, Maura, and hope to have you back soon.
I'll be. Thanks.
So that's all we have time for today. And of course, if you have any suggestions of topics you'd like us to cover, please write to me at yakabouttoday@gmail.com. And don't forget, you can always see us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. All you have to do is look for Yak About Today. So tell us what you think. I'm David Yakir signing off. Love you. Peace.